I'm Karen Burniston, the designer of Pop-It-Ups dies for Elizabeth Craft Designs, and I'm here with a quick tutorial on how to make a double heart pivot card. Since Pop-It-Up dies come with all of their decorator pieces included, I won't need much more than the heart pivot card, but I will use the brand new ring frame edges one because there's one that is a heart frame. Now, I've already made my card and put my folds in it, but let me tell you what I did. I measured the heart pivot card to determine how wide a side of the die would be from the center line out to the edge and came back in just a little bit. So I figured out that 3¼ inches would be just perfect. So when I took the pattern paper, what I did is I added a 1/2 inch on each end to be able to be a hinge that would connect it to my cardstock panels. So my actual pattern paper piece started at 7½ inches wide by 5 inches tall, and I scored it a 1/2 inch from each end for folding to make the hinges, and then just scored it in the middle. Then what I attached to those hinges were 2 red cardstock panels, 5 inches by 5 inches. The secret for doubling a pivot card is that you line up the die on one of the outer folds. So I'm using the alignment nubs that come on the die. I can place those anywhere along the fold, and I'm taping that down temporarily. Then what I do is I fold the back half of the card to the back, and you'll see a little bit of the die is hanging off the edge, and that's what I want so that it will stay connected there in the center. Now that's ready for die cutting, and I will say that since I'm cutting through multiple layers, I do want to roll through the machine twice. So I'll go through and then back through again. And then since those hinge areas are so thick, I'm just going to hit those hinge areas an extra time. What you'll find is that the die has cut through everything just beautifully other than right where those 2 little hinges are, because those are stacked up in there and there's about 4 layers in that location. So right at that location where those hinges are is probably not going to cut all the way through. And yeah, sure enough, when I open this up, I can see out there on the right in the hinge area, it didn't quite cut all the way through. So now I need to open up the card and find the location where I can nest that die right back in the grooves again so that I can hit just that area that didn't cut all the way through. And then I'll just roll that through the machine again. And it is important when I'm doing this that I stop my cutting pad short so it doesn't go anywhere past the fold, that center fold of the card. Otherwise, I'm going to cut my heart straight through instead of leaving it hinged. So you can see I'm leaving the end of that cutting pad not on the die so that it will not get pressure. And actually, since I just need the pressure on that hinge area, there's no reason to even roll all the way through. Just as long as I hit in the hinge area, that will be plenty. Perfect. It cut just perfectly, and now it is time to train this to fold into a double pivot card. I usually start by just finding the center fold in both directions. And then what I want is I want my big outer pages to be an accordion style fold, which means between the red and the pattern, those are going to be valley folds and then a mountain up the middle of the pattern paper. Now what I need to do is work those hearts to be folded opposite the big pages. So you can see I'm starting to work them so that they're trying to zigzag opposite the big pages. Then I can grab the big hearts on the ends and collapse the entire card and give it a good squish. And now you can see that I've got that cool little double heart pivot card. Backing strips are always optional on pivot cards, but I did decide that I wanted to add them. So I've just added some glue to the front of the card and then just slid in a cardstock strip that will fit there behind that half of the heart and kind of disguise the hole so that you won't now see down through the card anymore. And since I used pattern paper, I'm going to go ahead and do that for all 3 of my areas and just add those backing strips to the card. Once I get them on, I'm going to find that the card is a little stiffer now, which is what I wanted with that pattern paper being so thin. I did want to go ahead and stiffen up that card with those backing strips, especially behind the pattern paper areas. The new Elizabeth Craft Designs double-sided adhesive, which comes in rolls and sheets, is just perfect for die cutting. It has a real thin backing sheet now, so it die cuts beautifully. And the heart pivot card comes with a lot of decorator pieces included. It's got 2 big hearts that just barely nest together, but when you do nest those together, you get this really cool, very thin heart-shaped frame. And then I also have that swirly decorator heart that I can add in the middle and die cut all of those hearts at the same time. You may have noticed on my heart there some of the swirl pattern has come through just from die cutting, and that's because I had some extra thickness with the double-sided adhesive. And then on that little tiny frame, when that pops out, look how elegant that is. And that's going to look so nice on the card. You can see how it's going to fit on there just perfectly. Now, even though I got some built-in emboss just from die cutting, I do think I'm going to go back through with an embossing sandwich on my swirl heart. So I've put that back in the die again, replaced my impressions in silicone on the bottom. I'm on tab 1 for the big shot. And then when I roll that through, that silicone will press that paper up through that pattern and give you a really nice deep emboss on the front of the heart. One thing that I thought would look really cool on sort of red on red would be the ring frame edges. And there's one that is a heart shape. So I just had to cut 4 of those. I used the double-sided adhesive on the back of the cardstock so they would be stickers. And then I went ahead and cut a second set and stacked it up on top so I'd have dimension. And then I repeated that in the first and the fourth panels on the interior of the card as well. Since I just used pattern paper for the inner 2 hearts, I was just a little worried about those pivot points. I didn't want those to be able to tear. So what I did is I just took baker's twine on a needle and just attached the pivot point using the baker's twine and tied it into a decorative bow. And that way, if the paper happens to tear in that location, my pivot points will still be connected because they're tied on with the twine. You know, that's another good idea for fixing a broken pivot point if ever you end up tearing one while you're decorating something. I also added a little metal heart charm to each panel using a red brad, and those were just some stash items I had. And I also die cut one of the keys that comes with the heart pivot card and just attached it in the center there. And then my final bit of decoration was just to stamp a greeting, "You touched my heart," on one of the decorated hearts and put that inside the card. And my finished card, when folded, is a 5x5 square. Hey Facebook users, I have a page on Facebook called Karen Burniston Designer, and if you will go there and like that page, you're going to start seeing some fun links to awesome pop-up cards start showing up in your news feed. Would you like to own your own heart pivot card and ring frame edges one? Check out ecraftdesigns.com for information on where you can buy these dies. If you are looking for more inspiration for double pivot cards, check out these other 2 YouTube tutorials, the double evergreen pivot card in the all white scheme and the double Katie label pivot card in the all blue scheme. And you can find links to all of my accounts, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of it on KarenBurniston.com. Thanks for watching.